Today we're going to talk about angiosperms. Last time we talked about gymnosperms and how they dominated the planet from about 300 million years ago until about 150 million years ago. Over that time period, the CO2 concentrations continued to decrease, and this allowed for an expansion and a diversification of angiosperms, with important consequences for animal diversity. Angiosperms expanded during this period of decreasing carbon dioxide concentrations because they had certain efficiencies and advantages that we did not see in the gymnosperms. Today, angiosperms are the most diverse plant group, and as we understand from the fossil record, angiosperm diversity is far greater than the diversity we found in gymnosperms, lycophytes, ferns, mosses, and so forth. Going back to our timeline, much of the history of the Earth was the history of microbes. Then we had the expansion, the evolution of plants and their expansion onto land. And now we're going to talk about the window from today back to about 145 million years ago. Remember that the dinosaurs came in about 250 million years ago and their reign ended in 66 million years ago with a meteor crashing into the Caribbean. Angiosperms survived that period and persist until today. So going back into this timeline, as we go through here, we have plants invading land after the snowballer 2 and 3 and after the Cambrian explosion. We have the Carboniferous with the lycophytes, and then we have gymnosperms expanding as CO2 concentrations went down. And as they went down even further, angiosperms began to expand. The last stage in angiosperm expansion that we'll talk about towards the end of class today is going to be an expansion of C4 plants, a much more efficient photosynthetic pathway within the angiosperm. The distillation and redistillation of today's key message is going to be two overarching themes permeate angiosperm evolution. First, as adaptive responses to a climate that is changing both in terms of becoming drier and having declining atmospheric CO2 concentrations. And the second is going to be the coevolution of plants and animals. Now, coevolution is a term that you might not have heard before, but it is a pattern that appears when two or more species reciprocally affect each other's evolution through the process of natural selection. If we begin to look at the diversity of plants on land over the last 400 million years, we find that during the Carboniferous, it was dominated by lycophytes. After that, after the end of the Carboniferous, we saw ferns and horsetails and conifers dominating. But beginning about 145 million years ago, the angiosperms became more prominent and the others decreased in abundance. And the total number of fossil assemblages, our measure of genetic and biological diversity, is far greater in the angiosperms than we found in any of the other groups. At this point, I'd ask a clicker question: which group includes the most species on Earth today? And the answer would, of course, be what I just mentioned, D, the angiosperms. I could ask another clicker question: which group of organisms has been on the Earth the least amount of times? The answer, the angiosperms.